Now we can move on to the part that might get me taken off YouTube for whatever odd reason. So in order to truly be healthy, you need to understand that bacteria, virus, and parasites have a symbiotic relationship with humans and are only harmful under specific conditions. So let's start off with understanding the history of germ theory and terrain theory. Antoine Béchamp was the founder of the terrain theory. He believed that it was the terrain that led to the harmful bacteria that led to the host being sick. You essentially clean the fish tank to heal the fish in this sense. While on the other hand, Louis Pasteur, he believed that it was the harmful bacteria that led to the host being sick. He would have opted to medicate the fish to heal the fish, all while keeping it in the dirty fish tank. He invented pasteurization because the cows at the time were being fed literal waste product and grain, which led to the cows producing milk that people became sick to, which, destroying bacteria would make people not get sick. But the cow is still producing nutritionally inadequate and sick milk. It is stated that on his deathbed, he said, "The germ is nothing, and it is the terrain that is everything." So we can first start off with beneficial bacteria. E. coli is required by the body for immune training, vitamin K, and shrinking tumors. Yes, it literally shrinks tumors. Lactobacillus is for digestive support, gut pH balance, and it's also anti-inflammatory. Salmonella is required for immune activation. Bifidobacterium is essential for early immune development. Akkermansia strengthens the gut lining and is for metabolic health as well. Streptococcus aids in digestion and has antioxidant effects. And there's other bacteria that are essential. There's a lot of bacteria, and some of them produce vitamin B12. So bacteria are your friends mainly, but the issue arises due to industrial pollution, unnatural feeding practices where the bacteria change into unnatural strains, which would not ever be found in nature, and these are completely harmful to the human body. E. coli turns into E. coli 0157H7 because of the grain being introduced to the cattle, which disrupts the natural rumen of the animal. This is essentially an acid-resistant bacteria that is harmful to humans. Campylobacter contamination comes from manure fertilized from unhealthy animals. So it's always essential to wash your vegetable or herb that you get that's organic before you actually eat it. Salmonella turns harmful when antibiotics enter the mix and create acid-resistant strains. During the butchering process, it's most likely that the intestines touch the muscle meat, causing cross-contamination. Listeria turns harmful when it adapts to cold refrigeration and forms biofilms. Staphylococcus is caused by people who are unhealthy themselves touching food with their bare hands, and then it is left out at room temperature for a while. The unhealthy people often have compromised skin microbiome issues. So all of this in a sense is caused by industrialization, which would not happen in healthy animals, and natural healthy food handling processes. Going over to parasites next, they mostly appear due to waste product inside of the organisms. They act as a natural cleanup crew to consume dead and decaying tissue. Pigs are notorious for having parasites and can carry trichinosis. I personally do not consume pork at all for this reason, even though it is eradicated in the United States for the most part. But parasites also have a symbiotic relationship with humans. People used leeches, also known as hirudotherapy, worms as helmintic therapy, and tapeworm therapy for weight loss and reduced appetite. So they kind of use these parasites in history as a symbiotic relationship to cure their health issues. Moving over to prions, they are essentially misfolded protein parts that cannot be killed or destroyed. They are produced from cattle being fed animal waste products such as spinal tissue or even cardboard. Prions concentrate in the brain tissue heavily, and it would then be found in all other tissues of the body. So if you ate the muscle meat of an infected animal, you'd still get it. This causes neurodegenerative diseases such as Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. So it's pretty important that the animals are being fed healthy and natural diets. Coming over to virus are definitely misunderstood and taken out of context by the media and news organizations. Every virus and pandemic in history has each corresponding toxin in the environment. Viruses are the byproduct of cellular dis-ease due to industrialization of chemical and electrotoxicity. Viruses are protein parts created by the cell to cleanse the cell. Toxicity and malnutrition cause all cellular disease and detoxification. The only way to contract a virus is through injection of animal tissue and foreign biological material into the blood through either a mosquito or tick bite, for example. Here is a list of all the airborne virus and their corresponding toxins. The Black Plague was mostly considered to be caused by mass burning of coal and feces, plus malnutrition among the population. It added chemical toxicity into the mix. People inhaling the coal had strong detoxification symptoms, but were immune compromised. So based on their nutrition, that essentially determined how strong of a detoxification response they would have. The Great Plague of London was believed to be caused yet again by the mass burning of coal, as well as contaminated drinking water, plus malnutrition among the population. Cholera outbreaks were waste in drinking water and chemical pollution in the rivers. Polio was massive amounts of DDT being sprayed on the crops, then being eaten by the people. The Spanish flu of 1918 was the first introduction of radio wave technology, which caused cellular poisoning in the form of a flu-like detoxification. 1957 and 1968 influenzas, they were mostly believed to have been caused by air pollution. And then we can finally get into the C word of 2020. This was caused by the introduction of 5G technology operating on a spectrum of millimeter waves, which was used by the military at the time. This caused cellular poisoning, animated suspension, and oxygen absorption. To further explain, flu season is essentially a viral detoxification right before the winter to purge poisons, so it basically gives your body the best chances of survival during the winter. Colds are a much smaller bacterial detoxification. Viral particles are misconstrued, and it's extremely important that you understand the mechanisms of cellular detoxification. Poison cells will create viral particles. Viruses are neither dead or alive, they are protein parts. Your body uses them to get rid of waste and cellular toxicity. Let's say you have a poorly nourished organism. Then you expose it to an environmental toxin. The tissues and cells that are affected begin to produce, package, and secrete these poisons in the form of exosomes. This is a way of ridding the cells and tissues of substances that could do harm to the cell. Purge your poisons, so to speak. The greater exposure to toxic assaults, the more exosomes will be produced. What you will see is that these so-called exosomes in question are identical to the viral particles that make it onto the news. They are the same diameter inside the cell, they are the same diameter outside of the cell, they bind to the same receptor, they both contain RNA, and they both are found in the same fluid in the part of the body. And this part of the body was the lung. So, can you tell the difference between these two particles in the image? Now, this is completely problematic when scientists are on a time crunch to get a research paper out, or are given orders to get a paper out so they can receive funding to then develop an injection so they can quote unquote prevent a pandemic before it affects the population. So the scientists are essentially given the notion that there is a viral particle, and if they challenge the idea, then they would end up killing massive amounts of people. So this is where the faulty genome sequencing comes into play. And all it takes is one virologist to publish the paper in which it explains that there's a new virus. Then that's all that's needed. The news just needs one paper. Professor Zhang from China completely rushed his paper and sequenced the genome in record time of only 40 hours after receiving a patient sample. Faulty sequencing can turn mixed or degraded RNA, such as exosomes, vesicles, or other contamination, into a synthetic genome by accidentally stitching unrelated fragments together. The assembly software mathematically forces continuity, creating a genome that looks real but actually never existed in the organism. So many instances of sequencing produce many instances of variants. So the news sees this and they make people fear, in the public even more, creating more profit for the pharma industries. This is why you saw so many variants, such as Omega, Omicron, Delta, because they were just running it through. And it spit out a different result each time, thus producing a different variant. And this is not good at all. This creates unnecessary fear in the population and drives people to rely more heavily on pharmaceutical companies, which are profit-driven to begin with. And it is important that you understand this. Virus mutations are not real biological mutations. They merely are misinterpreted by sequence data or computational assembly errors. Sequencing methods create the illusion of genetic variation, which reconstructs genomes from fragmented genetic debris. It forces this pattern into the data that, it's not really biologically present. The correlation of a viral particle being inside of the cell at the time of sickness does not equal causation. Viral particles are merely the cell cleansing itself in the form of exosomes. Each sickness produces a different structure of exosome. In control experiments, Professor Stefan Lanka, who is a virologist, added antibiotic usage that were used in all the original papers to the claim that there was a new virus when the pandemic originally started. But he proved that the cytopathic effects were caused by the addition of antibiotics and not the viral particle. This is huge because it disproves all of the scientific papers that were originally published about there being a new airborne viral particle. Lastly, we will touch on injected virus, which are absolutely harmful. Mosquitoes cause malaria, West Nile virus, and this is caused by the mosquitoes absorbing pesticides from crops and heavy metals from the polluted water, as well as bacterial endotoxins and microplastics. And then they inject the animal tissue into people's blood. They could fly around and inject it into their blood. Ticks causing alpha-gal syndrome. I heavily suspect that there is some genetic engineering behind it. Bill Gates openly said he wants to reduce 1/3 of the world's population through injections. It's a live talk. You can watch this for yourself. He also has a biotech firm that released 150,000 genetically modified mosquitoes throughout the US. He also has a backed project named Oxitec that received $7.6 million to research and create genetically modified ticks. And above all else, he literally owns a patent that describes how to use human body activity data to mine cryptocurrency. And the kicker is the number of the patent is 666. You can see it right here. He understands that a virus can only be transmitted through injection. These people in power are not here to help you, and it's imperative that you understand this.